My name is Ava Mercer. I'm 31. And I didn't know my life was about to split into a before and an after until my boyfriend smiled at a table full of people humiliating me and told me, like it was nothing, if you can't handle jokes, pay and leave. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't even cruel in the dramatic way people expect heartbreak to look. That's what made it worse, because the way he said it meant he'd been thinking it for a long time. I met Nolan Reed 2 years ago at a charity fundraiser my company sponsored, one of those glossy downtown events where the lighting is warm, the wine is overpriced, and everyone pretends they're networking when they're really just hunting for attention. Nolan was working the catering circuit then, passing champagne flutes with a smile that belonged on billboards, tall, pretty, in a way that made people turn their heads and completely convinced the world owed him a spotlight. He told me on our second date that he was in entertainment. Not in a delusional way, he said, like he had proof. Then he pulled out his phone and showed me a commercial. Grainy, dated, a toddler in a diaper waddling across a living room. That's me, he said, eyes shining. I booked that when I was like 2. People don't just forget talent like this. I laughed because I thought he was joking. He wasn't. I work as a security supervisor at a corporate complex downtown. High-rises, executive floors, surveillance systems, crisis response. I manage 12 officers, coordinate with local PD, handle everything from petty theft to active threats. It's not glamorous, but it's real work. Serious work. It pays well too, $80K base, and with overtime I usually clear 6 figures. The kind of job you don't brag about at parties, but the kind that keeps your life steady when everyone else is living off vibes and credit cards. We started dating fast. Nolan was charming when it was just us. Soft voice, big dreams, all the right compliments. 10 months in, he basically moved into my 1-bedroom place on the north side. Lease in my name. I'd had it 4 years. It was my space. At first, we split bills. Then Nolan started investing in his career. Translation: headshots every few months, wardrobe hauls, casting calls that never called back. He'd come home exhausted like he'd worked a double shift, when really he'd spent 6 hours being told to try again by strangers with clipboards. And I told myself, this is what love is, supporting someone. The real problem wasn't even Nolan at first. It was his friends, a crew of 4 he'd known since high school. Harper, Kylie, Amber, and a guy named Colton, who attached himself to the group like something you couldn't scrape off. From day one, they treated me like I was a temporary inconvenience Nolan was slumming it with. It started as little jabs. Rent-a-cop energy, Harper would say, sipping her drink like it was funny. Kylie would tilt her head and ask if I ever got to chase bad guys or if I mostly just stood there looking tough. Amber would laugh too loud at every insult, like being the loudest made her the safest. And Colton was the worst because he did it with a grin and a friendly tone, like he was doing me a favor by including me in my own humiliation. He always touched Nolan's arm when he talked, always leaned too close, always had that smug, private confidence like he knew things I didn't. Whenever I said it bothered me, Nolan would roll his eyes and say, "Ava, it's not that deep. They're just joking." Then he'd kiss my cheek like I was the problem for feeling anything. I restore classic muscle cars in my spare time. Camaros, Mustangs, anything I can buy, beat to hell, and bring back to life. Grease under my nails, engine parts on my kitchen table, late nights in the garage when I need quiet. They called it playing with toys. They called me a grease monkey, and Nolan laughed along. 6 months ago, Nolan and I got engaged. Well, almost. We weren't officially in the big wedding planning stage yet, but he'd started calling me his future wife, and he wore the ring I gave him like it was a trophy. 3 weeks ago, Nolan landed what he called his big break. A local fashion show gig, some boutique at the mall doing their fall collection. Not Paris Fashion Week, not anything that would change his life. But the way Nolan acted, you'd think cameras were already chasing him down the street. He posted constantly, talked about brand alignment, practiced poses in the mirror like someone was going to walk in and offer him a contract. And I stupidly was genuinely happy for him. So when he mentioned celebrating, I offered to take him somewhere nice. I booked Bordeaux downtown, upscale steakhouse, candlelight, reservations for 2, just me and Nolan, intimate, quiet. I bought a new charcoal button-down dress, did my hair, put on perfume I only used for special occasions. I wanted him to feel loved, supported, seen. We arrived around 7 on a Friday. The place was packed, soft music, clinking glasses, that low, expensive hum of people spending money like it meant nothing. We gave my name, party of two. They led us to a corner booth. Candles, good lighting. Romantic enough that I felt my shoulders loosen for the first time in weeks. Then I saw Nolan's thumbs moving fast over his phone. That frantic texting. I asked, "Who are you messaging?" He didn't even look up. Nobody. And he smiled, this weird, guilty little smile that didn't reach his eyes. 10 minutes later, Harper walked through the door like she owned the building. Scanning, hunting. The second she spotted us, she beelined straight to our table. And that's when my stomach dropped. Because Nolan's face lit up like he'd been waiting for her. "Oh my God," he said too loud. "You guys are already here." Already. Not invited last minute. Not an accident. Planned. Harper slid in beside Nolan. Air kissed him, started gushing about traffic, didn't even acknowledge me, like I was furniture. I looked at Nolan. He wouldn't make eye contact. "Nolan," I said slowly, keeping my voice level, "did you—" "Surprise!" He cut me off with forced enthusiasm. "I know you said just us, but I thought it'd be more fun with everyone. You don't mind, right?" I did mind, but before I could answer, Kylie showed up and grabbed the menu like she was about to conduct an audit. "Jesus," she said, eyes widening. "These prices. Ava, you sure your security guard salary can handle this? Maybe we should have gone to Applebee's." She laughed. Nolan giggled. And something inside me, something old and tired, tightened. Then Amber arrived. The host asked if we needed a bigger table. I nodded because I was too stunned to argue. And then Colton showed up, late and loud, wearing a smug grin like he'd been waiting all week to watch me squirm. He did this elaborate handshake hug with Nolan that lasted too long, then finally acknowledged me with a lazy head nod. "What's up, Ava?" he said. "Thanks for the invite." "I didn't invite you. None of you." We got moved to a bigger table. Drinks were ordered. Nolan got sparkling wine. His friends ordered expensive mocktails like they were making a point. I got a soda. Harper made a face. How blue collar. They started talking like I wasn't there. Gossip, vacations, drama about people I didn't know. I tried to contribute when I could, but every time I opened my mouth, someone had something to say. And then Harper finally turned her attention to me like a cat deciding to play with a dying mouse. "So," she said, loading up an oyster with all the fixings, "Ava's still babysitting office buildings for a living." I smiled politely. "Security management, actually. I just finished training a new team. Got them certified for crisis intervention protocols." "Must be nice," Harper said, voice dripping. "Having such a simple job. Not much thinking required, right? Just walk around looking intimidating." My jaw tightened, but I stayed calm. Security management requires risk assessment, personnel leadership, coordination with law enforcement. We handle everything from cyber breaches to physical threats. It's not exactly standing around. "Oh, please," Kylie jumped in, setting down her drink. "It's not like you need a degree. Nolan here has real talent. He booked a commercial when he was a baby." Nolan smiled, actually smiled, and nodded like they were praising him for curing disease. And he didn't defend me. Not even a little. Colton leaned back, hands behind his head, eyes on Nolan like he was the star of the table. "I gotta be honest," Colton said, smirking. "When Nolan first told us about you, we were all like, a security guard? Really? He could do so much better, but hey, he sees something in you, I guess." He shrugged like he'd just complimented me. "Nolan's got standards," Harper added, laughing. "And Nolan?" He laughed too. I sat there listening to them rewrite my life into a punchline while the candlelight flickered like it was trying to warn me. The entrees arrived. I ordered the bone-in ribeye. They ordered filet mignon, sides, lobster tail, Nolan included, like someone else was paying. Because someone else was. Me. I was doing the math in my head and realizing this was going to run close to $600. And the worst part? It wasn't the money. It was the way Nolan looked at me, like I was supposed to take it. Like my role was to fund the night and swallow the humiliation with a smile. Harper pointed her fork toward Nolan, loud enough for the table to hear. "Honestly, though, when are you going to trade up? You just got your big break. You're about to blow up. Dating a security guard is very grounding of you." "Literally grounded," Colton added with a smirk, "because she grounds bad guys. Get it?" They exploded laughing. And Nolan laughed the loudest. That's when something in me clicked. Not anger, not tears, just ice-cold clarity. These people had been doing this for 2 years, and Nolan hadn't just allowed it. He'd participated. He'd needed it, because as long as they were laughing at me, he got to feel like the star. I set down my fork, took a slow drink of my soda, and in that moment, I realized I wasn't sitting at a celebration. I was sitting at my own public humiliation, sponsored by the man who claimed to love me. And I could feel the after creeping closer, like footsteps behind a door. I didn't slam the restaurant door behind me. I didn't flip the table. I didn't even look back. That's the part that still surprises me. How calm I was walking through Bordeaux's lobby, like I hadn't just watched my relationship die under candlelight and mocktails. Outside, the air felt colder than it should have. Downtown had that Friday night glow, valets hustling, couples laughing, engines purring at red lights. Everyone around me looked like they were living, and I felt like I'd been unplugged. My phone was vibrating so hard in my pocket it felt like it wanted to jump out and chase me. I didn't check it. I turned it to silent, slid it face down in the cup holder, and started my truck. For a while, I didn't even head home. I drove. No destination, just streetlights and breathing. Because if I went back too fast, I knew I'd talk myself out of what I'd just done. I'd start bargaining. I'd start minimizing. I'd start telling myself, they're just joking. Nolan didn't mean it. You're being dramatic. That's what gaslighting does. It teaches you to distrust your own pulse. But something about the way Nolan said it, pay and leave, snapped the last thread. He hadn't defended me for 2 years. He'd been training me to accept disrespect. By the time I finally pulled into my apartment complex, it was around 10:30. My building was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you hear your own thoughts too clearly. I climbed the stairs, unlocked my door, and stepped inside. And the smell hit me first. Nolan's cologne. That expensive, spicy scent he'd made me buy him for Christmas because he said image matters. It was everywhere. In the air, in the couch cushions, in the hallway like a warning. The living room looked like a tornado made of designer aspirations had blown through. His jackets draped over my chair. His shoes by my door, lined up like he owned the place. His skincare products spread across my bathroom counter in neat little armies. And on the living room wall, right where I used to hang my framed concert poster, was Nolan's vision board. A giant collage of magazine cutouts of models and celebrities, and Nolan's face, badly photoshopped onto half of them. He'd taped it up with pride, like this apartment was his launching pad and I was just the step stool. I stood there for a long moment, keys still in my hand, and it hit me. This wasn't just his stuff in my space. It was his entitlement. A physical manifestation of the way he'd slowly moved in without ever asking, slowly taken over without ever thanking me. The way he'd treated my stability like it was his birthright. I walked into the kitchen, opened the cabinet under the sink, pulled out the thick black trash bags I use for spring cleaning, and I started. No music, no phone, no tears. Just the sound of plastic snapping open and my own breathing. I didn't do it angrily at first. It was almost methodical. His clothes off the couch folded into bags. Shoes, belts, sunglasses. The little tray on my dresser where he dumped his jewelry. The drawer in my bathroom where his products had taken over. Everything that was his went into bags. And then I got to the vision board. I stared at it for a second, remembering how Nolan used to stand in front of it like it was sacred. "How do you not get it, Ava?" he'd say. "This is manifestation." I grabbed the edge and ripped it off the wall. The tape peeled with the harsh tearing sound that felt weirdly satisfying. I bent it in half. Then I tore it clean down the middle. The cutout faces split like paper lies. I found his latest stack of headshots, $300 worth, on the coffee table. Glossy, dramatic lighting, Nolan staring off into the distance like he was contemplating greatness. I didn't even look at them for long. I dumped them into a bag. I kept going until my apartment started looking like mine again. By midnight, there were 8 trash bags lined up by the door like evidence. I cracked open a soda and sat on my couch, where I could see the blank space on the wall where the vision board used to be. That blank space felt like oxygen. Then I finally checked my phone. 63 texts, 41 missed calls, 8 voicemails. The texts were a journey from arrogance to panic. Nolan, very funny, get back here and pay. Nolan, Ava, this isn't cute anymore. Nolan, are you serious right now? Harper had sent a string of messages calling me broke, insecure, controlling. Kylie sent one that just said, "Hope you're proud of yourself, loser." Amber accused me of financial abuse, which would have been hilarious if it wasn't so insulting it made my throat tighten. And Colton sent me a Venmo request for $200. The note said, "Emotional damages for ruining the night." I stared at it for a long second. Then, with a calm I didn't know I had, I blocked them. One by one. Nolan, Harper, Kylie, Amber, Colton. It felt like closing 5 doors at once. I was setting my phone down when I heard it. Car doors. Voices. Laughter too loud for midnight. I froze. Then I walked to the window and pulled the blind up just enough to see. In the parking lot below, headlights swung into place, one after another. Nolan's car. Harper's SUV. and a black BMW that I knew had to be Colton's because Colton loved pretending he had money. They piled out like a drunk parade, stumbling, shrieking, loud enough to wake the entire building. And Nolan was leading the charge, mascara smudged from whatever dramatic crying he'd been doing in the car, hair messy, holding his heels in one hand like he was the victim of a disaster instead of the architect of one. They stumbled toward the stairs, and I felt this sharp, cold dread slide down my spine. Not fear, not exactly. More like, here we go. I opened my door and stepped into the hallway before they could pound on it, because I wasn't letting Nolan control the first moment again. They came up the stairs like a swarm. Nolan saw me and immediately shrieked, loud enough to echo. "Ava, what the hell?" "Keep your voice down," I said flatly. "It's 1 a.m. People have jobs." Harper swayed beside him, clearly out of it. "We had to sit in a back room," she slurred. "The manager stood over us like we were criminals." Colton laughed, but it was mean. "Yeah, and my dad had to come at 11:30 with his credit card. Do you know how embarrassing that was?" I blinked slowly. "Sounds like a you problem," I said. 4 employed adults couldn't cover a $600 tab? Kylie pointed at me like she'd found the villain in a movie. "You invited us." "No," I said. "Nolan invited you, behind my back." Nolan stumbled forward and gripped the railing like he was steadying himself. "We're engaged, Ava. You can't just abandon me." "Engaged," I corrected, past tense. His face changed, like a mask cracking. "What?" he whispered, suddenly small. "Your friends showed me exactly how you feel," I said, "and you laughed at every insult." Colton stepped forward, puffing his chest like he wanted to perform. "You embarrassed all of us. You need to make this right." "Step back," I said, my voice low. "You're on my property." Colton scoffed. "Or what?" And I could see it, the moment he thought he could intimidate me because I'm a woman, because I'm smaller than him, because he thought my job was a joke. But my job had trained me to read men like Colton in half a second. All bark, all performance. And still dangerous when drunk. Before I could say anything, Nolan tried to push past Colton and reach for my door. "I need my stuff," he snapped. "You can't keep me out." I shifted one step, blocking the doorway. "You mean this stuff?" I pointed just inside my apartment. 8 trash bags lined up like soldiers. Nolan's eyes widened. His mouth fell open like he couldn't understand what he was seeing. "You threw my things in trash bags?" he screamed. "That's designer." "So go sell it," I said, calm as a locked door. "Pay your restaurant bill." Nolan lunged at me like he was going to force his way through. I sidestepped. He crashed into Harper, and they both went down in the hallway in a tangle of limbs and laughter and shrieking. Harper's elbow connected with Nolan's face during the fall. Nolan yelped. Colton reached down to grab them. And Nolan, wild-eyed and flailing, swung at him thinking it was me. His hand connected with Colton's cheek. Colton stumbled back into Kylie. Kylie hit the wall. Amber. Amber was filming. I saw the phone in her hand, the camera light blinking, and she was giggling like this was entertainment. My stomach turned. Nolan scrambled up, face red, breathing hard, eyes wet. "Give me my key," he demanded. "You don't have a key anymore," I said, "and the locks are being changed tomorrow." "You can't do this," Harper shouted, still trying to stand in heels like a newborn deer. "You can't just kick him out." "Watch me." Nolan fumbled in his purse. "I have a key." "You try to use it," I said, voice steady, "and I call the police for trespassing." Kylie started crying. Drunk tears, mascara streaking. "He loves you." Colton stepped in my face again. "You need to apologize." "For what?" I asked. "Leaving when I was told to leave?" Nolan's hand flew to his ring finger. He was still wearing the ring I'd given him. "You want this back?" he hissed, eyes sharp now. "Is that what this is about? Money?" And there it was. The truth. Always money. My chest tightened, but my voice stayed even. "Yes," I said. "Give me the ring." Nolan's eyes flashed. "No," he snapped. "You gave this to me. It's mine." Colton, still buzzing from the chaos, laughed, and then, like a drunk man with no sense of self-preservation, he decided to be honest. "Oh, come on," Colton said, waving a hand. "Just give it back. It's not like you were even faithful." The hallway went silent. Even Harper stopped moving. Kylie's sobbing hitched. Amber's giggle died. Nolan froze like someone had poured ice water down his spine. My vision narrowed. "What did you just say?" I asked quietly. Colton blinked, realizing too late what he'd done. "You were literally all over some guy at Amber's place yesterday," he slurred. "Like full-on grinding. We all saw it." Nolan's face went white. His mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. "It wasn't," he stammered. "I was out of it. It was just dancing." But the way he couldn't look at me, that told me everything. Harper reached for him. "Nolan." Nolan jerked away and lunged at Colton. "You piece of trash." They collided. Both went down. Colton's head hit the wall with a sickening thud. Harper shrieked. Kylie screamed. Amber kept filming. And I stood there, in my own hallway, watching them destroy each other, and realizing this was what Nolan had invited into my life. This was the life he thought I deserved. I pulled out my phone, dialed with steady fingers. 911, the operator answered. Yeah, I said, eyes fixed on the mess in front of me. I need police at Riverside Apartments on Oak Street. Building C, multiple intoxicated individuals causing a disturbance in the hallway. It's escalating into violence. Nolan heard the word police and snapped his head toward me, panic flooding his face. No, he cried, suddenly lucid. Ava, please, don't call the cops. I didn't stop, because this wasn't about being nice. This was about being safe, and it was about consequences. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Harper's face twisted with fear. We need to go, now. But they were too disoriented, too drunk, too busy fighting and crying and filming. And I stood in my doorway, breath steady, heart cold, knowing the next 5 minutes were going to change everything. The police lights painted the hallway red and blue like a warning label no one could ignore. 4 officers came up the stairs, radios crackling, faces already tired in that way that said Friday night, alcohol involved. They took one look at the scene. Nolan sobbing on the floor, Colton clutching his head, Harper bleeding from the mouth, Kylie shaking, Amber still holding her phone, and immediately separated everyone. One of the officers recognized me. Ava, he said, brows knitting together. This your situation? My ex-boyfriend, I said calmly, and his friends. They showed up at 1 a.m, tried to force their way into my apartment, and started fighting. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't embellish. I didn't need to. The hallway cameras did most of the talking. While another officer took statements from the group, each one talking over the other, contradicting themselves, crying, slurring, I showed the officer my phone, the texts, the missed calls, the Venmo request. I showed him the 8 trash bags inside my door. He's not on the lease, I said. He's been staying here unofficially. I want all of them trespassed from the property. The officer nodded. That's your right. They ran sobriety checks. Every single one failed. Public intoxication, disorderly conduct. The officer explained the trespass warning slowly, carefully, like he was talking to children. If any of you come back here, you'll be arrested. Nolan's face crumpled. What about my stuff? He sobbed. I don't have anywhere to go. I didn't look at him. Take your bags and leave. The officers watched as they loaded the trash bags into their cars. 8 black reminders of how fast entitlement turns into loss. Nolan kept trying to talk to me, apologizing, crying, promising. I said nothing, because the most powerful thing I could give him at that moment was silence. When they finally left, the hallway smelled like stale alcohol and regret. I apologized to my neighbors for the noise, went back inside, locked my door, and slept harder than I had in months. Saturday passed quietly. I slept until noon, made myself a real breakfast, eggs, toast, coffee, ate it at my table without someone critiquing how unexciting my life was. I changed the locks. My landlord didn't hesitate. Given the circumstances, absolutely. He even knocked a bit off the charge. 4 years of being a good tenant apparently mattered more than Nolan ever thought it would. By Sunday morning, the chaos felt contained until I logged into my bank account. At first, I thought it was a glitch. The balance looked wrong, too low. I refreshed the page. Same number. My stomach tightened. I clicked into transaction history, and there it was. ATM withdrawals. 200, 300, 500. Little bites taken over months. All from machines near places Nolan frequented. My hands went cold. I checked my credit card next. Sephora, Ulta, a boutique called Luxe and Lace. Charges I didn't recognize. Dates that stretched back 3 months. I sat there staring at my screen, heart pounding, as the total climbed. 8,520. Gone. Not accidentally spent. Not misunderstood. Stolen. While I was covering bills. While I was working overtime. While I was being told I was too sensitive. I took screenshots of everything. Pulled statements going back 6 months. Then I called my bank. I need to report fraud, I said, voice steady even as my hand shook. My ex-boyfriend had access to my card information. They asked if I wanted to pursue charges. Yes. Same call with my credit card company. Same answer. Monday morning, I went to the station and filed a formal report. The officer at the desk whistled softly as he flipped through my documentation. This is clear cut, he said. Over $8,000. We'll forward this to Detective Division. I nodded. Good. On the drive home, I learned something new. Civil theft laws. Triple damages. I did the math in my head at a red light. 25,560 hours. That number felt like a line drawn in permanent ink. I called a lawyer. By Wednesday, I was sitting in his office, paperwork spread out like a map of Nolan's lies. "This is textbook," he said. "You've got documentation, police reports, witnesses. He'll either settle or lose." "Let's file," I said. Then my phone rang. "Unknown number," I answered. "Ava," a woman said softly. "This is Nolan's mother." Her voice sounded tired, defeated. She talked about mistakes, about stress, about how Nolan was falling apart. I let her finish. Then I said, "He stole from me." Silence. "I'm not backing down," I added. "He needs consequences." She sighed. "You're right." When the call ended, I felt something settle in my chest. This wasn't revenge. This was accountability. 2 weeks later, there was a knock on my door. And when I looked through the peephole, I barely recognized him. I didn't open the door right away. I just stood there, staring through the peephole, trying to reconcile the person I was seeing with the man who used to sleep in my bed. Because this version of Nolan looked like life had grabbed him by the face and shaken. His lips were wrong, swollen far beyond normal, stretched tight and shiny, like overfilled balloons. The rest of his face looked puffy too, as if someone had tried to remodel him with a bicycle pump and bad judgment. He was wearing a hoodie I'd never seen before, hands shoved into the pockets like a kid waiting outside the principal's office. Behind me, Mark, one of my oldest friends, paused the game on TV and came to stand a few steps back. "You gonna answer that?" he asked. "I don't know yet," I said. Another knock, louder this time. "Ava," Nolan called, voice muffled and slurred. "Please, I just need to talk." Mark leaned closer, squinting at the peephole. "Holy, what happened to his face?" I sighed and slid the chain into place before opening the door. The second it cracked open, Nolan tried to smile. It was horrifying. "Hi," he said, struggling around his lips. "I thought you'd like them bigger." Mark lost it. I felt him shake behind me, biting his knuckle to keep from laughing out loud. "Nolan," I said flatly, "you look ridiculous." His eyes flickered, hurt, anger, desperation, all fighting for control. "You used to say you liked subtle lips," he said, trying to pout and failing. "I thought maybe if I fixed myself—" "And you thought this would fix stealing from me?" I asked. Mark snorted. Nolan flushed. "Why is he here?" "Because he's allowed to be," I said. "You're not." Nolan's breath hitched. "I made a mistake." "You made a pattern," I corrected. He swallowed hard, wincing like even that hurt. "I don't have the money." "I know," I said calmly. "That's why I'm suing you." His eyes widened. "Suing?" "Civil theft," I said. "Triple damages. You'll be served soon." Mark whistled low. "That's gonna sting." Nolan started crying. Actual tears, spilling over inflated lips, mixing with smeared mascara and shame. "You can't do this to me," he sobbed. "I'm already ruined." "You ruined yourself," I said. "I just stopped protecting you from the consequences." He stepped closer, crossing the line. I didn't raise my voice. "Nolan," I said, "you are trespassing. Leave. Now." His face twisted with rage and panic. "You think you're better than me?" "Yes," I said simply, "because I don't steal from people who love me." Mark leaned over my shoulder. "Also, dude, you look like a blowfish." "That did it," Nolan snapped, started shouting, slurring, pounding once on the door. I closed it, locked it. Then I called my landlord, then the police. We watched from the window as 2 officers arrived and gently, but firmly, escorted Nolan off the property, reminding him again that next time would mean arrest. He didn't look back. 2 weeks later, a cashier's check arrived in the mail. $13,720. Not the full amount I was entitled to, but enough to close the wound. I deposited it, and I thought that was the end. I was wrong. For a while after the settlement, my life went quiet. Not the heavy, anxious kind of quiet that follows a fight, but the peaceful kind. The kind where you wake up and realize no one is about to drain your energy before you've even had coffee. I didn't hear from Nolan again. Not directly. But when you untangle yourself from someone after 2 years, the echoes don't disappear all at once. They find their way back through mutual acquaintances, overheard conversations, casual updates you didn't ask for. And slowly, almost methodically, I watched his world come apart. The criminal case came first. The charges didn't disappear the way Nolan had assumed they would. His lawyer negotiated it down to a misdemeanor after he accepted a plea deal, but it still stuck, still followed him. Still showed up when anyone bothered to look. By March, it was official. A theft conviction. Not a misunderstanding, not drama, theft. In April, the modeling agency dropped him. No dramatic announcement. No warning. Just an email saying they were moving in a different direction after a background check. His big break fashion show? Quietly reassigned to someone else. Turns out brands don't like associating with people who steal from their partners. Shocking, I know. By early summer, Nolan was back living with his mother, working at a chain restaurant, on probation. The same man who used to lecture me about dreams and not settling was suddenly living the most basic, restricted version of life imaginable. And for the first time since I met him, no one was saving him. The friend group fared better, though not without scars. Harper kept her job, but she took a hit. That emotional rant she'd posted after the restaurant incident, someone from work saw it. HR didn't love the public mess. She got a warning. After that, she distanced herself from Nolan hard, like she could scrub him from her reputation if she tried hard enough. Kylie lost 2 clients from her social media business. One specifically cited unprofessional conduct and online drama. She posted a vague apology about growth and accountability a month later and kept moving. Amber's brand consulting didn't survive, but not because of Nolan. She just wasn't good at it. She pivoted to a corporate marketing job and stopped talking about entrepreneurship altogether. Colton's story was the most poetic. That 7-figure deal he bragged about? Stock options in a startup that folded by August. Worthless. He landed another sales job, fine money, no flash, and made a point of pretending not to see me the one time we crossed paths downtown. Coward. The group didn't explode the way I'd expected. They just drifted. Less hanging out, less loyalty talk, fewer group photos. Nolan was the only one completely cut loose. And honestly, that felt right. While his life was shrinking, mine was expanding in ways that didn't require announcements or validation. I finished restoring the '69 Camaro SS in June, sold it for $48,000, bought a '72 Chevelle SS in July, and rolled it into the garage like a promise to myself. That's where I met Damien. Cars and coffee event. Early morning. Grease-stained hands. Easy smile. He's a paramedic, 30. Calm in a way that comes from seeing real emergencies and knowing what actually matters. He didn't flinch when I told him what I did for a living. Didn't joke. Didn't minimize. Just said, that's important work. Novel concept. We started dating slowly. No chaos, no proving, no performances. He split bills without keeping score. Helped me in the garage without needing praise. Listened when I talked. Actually listened. I didn't realize how starved I'd been for that until I had it. 4 months in, I told him the whole Nolan story. All of it. The restaurant, the theft, the lawsuit, the lip filler. He laughed at the absurd parts and went quiet at the rest. That's not a mistake, he said. That's entitlement. Exactly. By the time fall rolled around, Nolan tried reaching out through a mutual acquaintance. A message got forwarded to me. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you're doing well. I didn't reply. That chapter was closed, or so I thought. Because in December, 9 months after everything blew up, I was in the garage with Damien, engine torn down, classic rock playing low, both of us covered in grease and laughing about something stupid. The doorbell rang. Damien wiped his hands. You expecting someone? No, I said. I walked to the door, looked through the peephole, and there he was. Nolan. No entourage. No confidence. Just standing there alone. I stood there longer than I meant to. Not frozen, just assessing. The Nolan on the other side of my door didn't look like the man who'd laughed while his friends tore me apart, or the one who'd screamed in my hallway like the world owed him mercy. This Nolan looked worn down. No styled hair, no dramatic outfit, just jeans, a faded hoodie, shoulders slumped like gravity had finally caught up. The lip filler was gone, thank God, but the damage lingered in other ways. Dark circles under his eyes, skin dull, posture defensive. He looked older than 28 should. I opened the door halfway and kept my body firmly in the frame. What do you want? I asked. He flinched at my tone like he'd expected warmth and found a wall. Ava, he said quietly, I needed to see you. Behind me, I felt Damien shift, not intruding, just present. Nolan's eyes flicked past me, then widened. Who's that? My boyfriend, I said. No hesitation, no softness. Damien. Something in Nolan's face cracked. You moved on already? I let out a short breath. It's been 9 months. I haven't stopped thinking about you, he said, voice shaking. About us. There it was. Us. Like it still existed if he said it carefully enough. He stepped forward. I didn't move, but my hand went up. Stop! He froze. I know I messed up, he rushed on, words tumbling over each other. My friends were toxic. I let them influence me. I didn't appreciate what I had. I was stupid. I was insecure. I'm in therapy 3 times a week. I'm working on myself. I nodded slowly. Good. Hope flickered in his eyes. But that doesn't change anything, I continued. It died just as fast. Damien spoke then, calm and measured. You probably shouldn't be here. Nolan's jaw tightened. This is between me and Ava. No, I said quietly. This is my house and my life. You're a guest who wasn't invited. Nolan's eyes filled. Please, just talk to me. Just give me a chance to show you I've changed. You already did, I said. He blinked. When? When you stole from me, I said. When you laughed while I was humiliated. When you told me to pay and leave. When you only showed remorse after consequences hit. That's not fair, he snapped, desperation edging into anger. I lost everything because of you. I felt something settle in my chest then. Clear, steady, final. No, I said. You lost everything because of you. I just stopped carrying you. Silence stretched between us. Nolan's shoulders sagged. I'm broke. I'm on probation. My career's over. My friends are gone. And whose fault is that? I asked. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Said nothing. That was answer enough. He looked at Damien again, something dark flashing in his eyes. So you just replaced me? I stepped fully out into the doorway, blocking his line of sight. Careful, I said, voice low. You're about to say something you can't take back. Damien smiled. Not smug, not cruel, just calm. It's okay. I get it. Nolan sneered. What do you get? That you peeked at a childhood commercial, Damien said evenly, and thought that made you better than people with real jobs. Nolan's face flushed red. You think you're better than me? He snapped at Damien. I don't steal from my partner, Damien replied. So, yeah. Nolan took a step forward. I didn't raise my voice. Leave, I said. He stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time, not as a safety net, not as a resource, but as a person who would not bend. Do you hate me? He asked, small now. I searched myself honestly. No, I said. I don't feel anything about you anymore. That did it. Something inside him collapsed. He nodded once, wiped his face with his sleeve, turned and walked away without another word. Didn't look back. I closed the door. Locked it. Damien slid his hand into mine. You okay? I smiled. Soft, real. Better than okay. We ordered pizza. Went back to the garage. Spent the rest of the afternoon rebuilding an engine, talking about normal things. His next shift, my progress on the Chevelle, a horror movie coming out that weekend. Easy conversation. No walking on eggshells. No proving. Nolan taught me what I don't want. Damien showed me what I do. And honestly, that's the best ending I could have written for myself.